Welcome to episode 10 of Living in Infinity. We have a decent list of topics to cover, but to begin, we're going to talk a little bit about Threads, the new and maybe short living Twitter competitor. I'm very excited about it. Very excited about this conversation. I don't know much about it, but what I have seen, what I have seen on Threads is pretty funny. So I'm ready to dive in.
Did you download it yet or get a chance to use it or anything?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, me neither. And I don't use Instagram anymore, so I didn't really have any reason to do it. But I thought their strategy was a very smart strategy for like onboarding users. Basically, the way it worked, like if you already had an Instagram account, which majority of people do, it just you can automatically use your Instagram account to create an account on Threads, and it'll just like port over all of your information. Um, So I think with that strategy, they were able to hit like 100 million users within either the first 2 days or something around there, like super quick. Which
Mm.
I guess technically makes it the fastest growing, consumer social app ever. But I think I wouldn't really give it that title given that like Instagram has a billion users. It's not like it was a fresh app, like
Yeah.
it was a bunch of existing users they just immediately brought over.
So that brings to mind when I was like 10 and really into the Guinness Book of World Records. One of the records was the world's best-selling video game, and it was Wii Sports, the one that just automatically comes with the console, and that is just
Right.
exactly what that is.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of cheating on that statistic. And I think a lot of people understood that. The more important thing was like, okay, Instagram launches a new consumer social product. I think we all could have guessed that there was going to be a lot of people that sign up and use it. The question is, are people going to stay and continue using it? Which my prediction from the beginning was if anyone has a chance of putting out a good Twitter competitor, it would be Instagram, given just the massive user base they already have. But I still did not see this like being a success because there have been so many Twitter competitors that have popped up over time. I mean, even some now like Rumble, Truth Social, like a lot of these off-brand Twitters that just never really took off. Um, the the like consistency that Twitter has of people that are using it and have been using it for years and years now, that's very, very hard to replicate. There's like a culture on Twitter that you just can't really recreate. Um, so I didn't really see this being a success. And then, I mean, I don't want to say it's like, I think it's too early to say that Threads is a complete failure, just because it's only been like 2 weeks. But the statistics that are coming out as of right now are pretty rough. It's not looking good for Threads. What I saw was after the first week, daily users were down 20%, and then the user time spent was down 50%. Um, so, I mean, that alone, like if you're not really making it past the first week and your retention's already that bad, it's looking pretty rough for Threads. And then another one that I saw, this was posted July 14th. Day one retention was only 37%. So like after just 24 hours, only 37% of users would stick around. And then after 7 days, it was only 16%. So, and if you look at the retention
Wow.
compared to, let's say Twitter's day one retention is 46%. And then the day seven is 35%. So way more people are consistently using Twitter. It's not looking good for Threads, but we'll see if they can kind of turn that around. But have you seen like there's already like tons of censorship stuff happening on Threads. Have you seen any images of that?
Yeah. So I saw one tweet. Um, I saw one tweet. It was a picture of there's a picture of like two tweets. The first one from this lady being like, "Oh, I'm excited about Threads. It's about time somebody started a proper whatever social media to compete against Twitter." and she was all about like gonna be. I think she was all about like, oh, it's gonna be like very productive for conversation and discussion and whatever. And then the very next tweet was a picture of her getting blocked for like sharing her thoughts or on whatever issue.
Yeah,
She was like,
I
and
saw
then it
that.
like
Yeah.
clicked it. Yeah, it clicked in her head. She's like, how can we, discuss things properly if you're blocking everybody? So yeah, I think hopefully this backfires for Facebook and whoever is like pro censorship, and it kind of like makes a lot of people who uh, are in favor of that stuff. It makes them realize like, wait a minute, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. I think it's never been if and all the other Twitter competitors have proven this. It's never been a smart business model to create like a consumer social business wrapped around the idea of it being an alternative of something that's already like the mainstream. Like if you're like Threads, for example, or True Social or any of these other ones, like the only people that are signing up and using that are like the rejects of Twitter, basically, like the people that are against Twitter. Like that's just
Hmm.
not like a healthy community that you're building on the app that's gonna stick around, create quality content that's gonna get a lot of people to use it. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't see this working long term. That would be my guess, but it'll be interesting to see what the evolution of this app is over like the next several months or so. Because from what I've heard from people that have used it, because I personally haven't, it's like a well built app. Like it's very fast, clean to use, very simple, which is to be expected from a company like Instagram. But that only goes so far. If you want to build a social media website that people use consistently all the time, like it's all about the people that use it. And right now, everybody is on Twitter. So I just don't see any reason why someone would want to like leave Twitter and start using Threads more actively, try to rebuild their entire audience all over again. Like it's just, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Um, you kind of cut out there for a second, so I missed that last part. But yeah, so it's interesting with notes. I think that is their problem on Substack. So Notes is like Substack's Twitter competitor, and there's no censorship to my knowledge. Like that was their. I mean, I think that's always been Substack's thing. Like they're just very pro open free speech. So that's certainly not the issue there. But it's yeah, it's definitely. I think I don't know how it's doing like performance wise, like how many people are on it. I get on it every now and then. But it's yeah, it's definitely just not as good as Twitter. And I think partly it's because it's not um as well built as your Twitter or thread as Twitter or thread might be. And then also, yeah, there's something to that, like it's the rejects of Twitter. Not saying that the people on it are like uh not successful or whatever, but it just seems to be like consistent with mainly like small writing niche communities. Um
Yeah.
And so I just like it's hard to get prominent people who it's hard to like see them. Um, and then well, I mean, like certainly the algorithm's not as good. You get like just a hodgepodge of like random topics, which are like they're interesting, but it's not it's just certainly
Yeah.
not an algorithm that's like fostered to you. So you gotta do some work to
Mhm.
get to some interesting stuff. And
Is Notes built
but Ed
into Substack or is it a completely separate like
mhm.
website and platform, like the way Instagram and Threads are separate?
No, there it's all you just go on to substack.com and then you see like
Mm.
yeah, you just see it right there.
Okay. That's kind of what I see happening to Threads once Instagram realizes it's not really taken off. I think they'll try to maybe combine them into a single app. Like you have one feed for your image posts of Instagram and then another feed for the text-based posts on Threads. Um, and even that, like
Yeah,
I think
that would
if they did
certainly
that, it would at least help like make it way easier for users to like be retained and use it as opposed to like switching between apps back and forth, you know?
it'd actually be sweet. I think I'd really like that. Uh,
They're combined.
like it, but it, if Twitter did something like that where you could say what you want and stuff.
Yeah. Also, by the way, I'm on vacation
So
right now in Florida, so Wi-Fi is a bit spotty. So if there's like any delay between our responses, it's just because I have a pretty bad connection here.
yeah, you're cutting in and out a little bit, but I think it'll still work. Um, but yeah, it's hmm, it's interesting though to think about what makes Twitter so successful because it seems so easy, but or it seems so like simple, but you see it time and time again. Companies just fail to uh to keep up to get it right.
Yeah. And two, I this kind of came to mind while we're on the topic of Twitter. I think it was last week that the first round of payouts went out for like the top creators on Twitter. So basically, Twitter has started a new um, ad share program where a revenue share program through ads, where basically for all the creators that are getting there's like a certain threshold I think you have to hit where it's like maybe 5 million impressions per month. If you're above this threshold, then Twitter will put ads on your tweets, like in the replies, and you will get paid for all of the ad share revenue that comes from the views of these ads on your tweets. And so the first round of payouts went out last week, and a lot of people were like posting screenshots of how much they had gotten paid. That I think it was like backlogged to, or the revenue was collective up until like February, I think. So around like 5 months worth of ad share revenue that came from it. But there were people I think the highest payout that I saw was like over $50,000, which is like 10 grand a month, just from tweeting. And so I'm surprised that like this isn't something Twitter did years ago under the previous management. Like this is just makes so much sense to me as far as incentivizing people to stay on Twitter, post consistently, post really good content too. So yeah, this is like super exciting for really anyone with an audience that wants to be able to like monetize their Twitter following.
That idea of was it ad sharing, ad revenue sharing?
Yeah.
That's ingenious. I mean, I can't believe that. Yeah, like you said, I can't believe they didn't do that before. And I mean, I don't like Instagram doesn't do that. Um, and none of your other social media platforms do that, as far as I'm aware. So yeah, it's just crazy. It took so long to get that in place somewhere.
Yeah. I think a couple of months ago, Instagram was doing like a little pilot program for this, and it seemed like people weren't really that crazy about it. I don't know all the specific details of it. The only other ones that I know that do this are like YouTube, obviously, which they are extremely successful with doing that. Um, and Snapchat as well. They started doing it, I think, last year.
Mm.
And I've seen a lot of people that are now like super successful just from posting on Snapchat all day. Um, so now Twitter kind of adopting the same model. It's super interesting because they'll be the first like text-based platform that is now doing revenue sharing for ads. And so it's just kind of like,
Well, and what'd you say the
go ahead.
threshold was? Like you had to get like how many views per post you have to get in order to get in on the money?
As of right now, it was like during this like initial, I guess, test pilot program of it, it was like, I want to say 5 million impressions per month. Um, I
Mm.
think that was the number. And you have to be subscribed to Twitter Blue. Um, so anyone that's not paying for Twitter Blue doesn't get access to this at all, which I think is also super funny because a lot of like big accounts that have large followings that were like against Twitter Blue for because they hate Elon or like whatever reason it was, they've now just missed out on thousands and thousands of dollars that they could have had because they're they were
They
just
didn't want
like
to pay
too
anybody.
stuck up or whatever to worry about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's hilarious. That is just the ultimate irony.
Yeah. So now it's like for all those people that were against buying Twitter Blue and they have big followings, it's like either you have to just like put your differences aside and subscribe, or like face the fact that you are missing out on thousands of dollars a month for whatever moral reasons that you might have. Like at this point, you just look silly if you're not, if you have a big following and you're not paying for Twitter Blue.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah, they really have to compromise their morals there, which is pretty that's pretty funny to me.
Right.
They're silly morals.
Hmm.
But,
Basically.
yeah. Speaking of that, the whole, Elon Zuckerberg beef, I've seen just a lot of people that are not a fan of it, and then it just got me thinking about, like, Elon's sense of humor. I really I don't know. To me, it's just funny. Is that is that wrong? Like, am I wildly missing the mark? Like, I see his, like, his more, like, let's just call them his stupid tweets. They're just funny.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Does that make me a bad person? That's a legit question. I'm really interested to know.
No, I think I'm the same way. I think people take things way too seriously. Like, lighten up a bit, relax. A lot of the stuff he's tweeting is just like meant to be a joke. And like, I think also too, he likes to kind of poke the bear a little bit just to like stir up engagement and stuff on Twitter, which is smart. But for the most part, like, he's just, he's just making jokes on Twitter. Like, I think people take things way too far and like they try to find, the evil in everything when in reality, like it's not that deep, you know?
Yeah. And it's just like, what do you prefer? Do you prefer a world with just no jokes? Is that what you want?
Right.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. I read an article of, like, that was just dogging on it. And I mean, when I come across ridiculous stuff, I do want to, like, really consider it because it's like, I don't know, maybe I'm way off the mark, but I don't know. In this case, it still seems ridiculous to just be all that worked up about it, about his jokes.
Yeah. I think it's just become, I mean, we've seen this for like, I would say the past several years now. It's just become like the cool thing to hate on Elon or his companies or anything. Like, I think when people see super popular things, whether it's a person, a company, a product, whatever, it makes them like feel smart to go against whatever's popular. And I think in some cases that does make sense, but for the vast majority of things, it's like things are popular for a reason. Like, Elon isn't the most successful and most famous person on earth for no reason. Like, there's lots of valid reasons for that. And so I think people get like this moral high ground feeling whenever they go against big things like that. But in reality, I think it just makes them look more silly than anything.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, Trying to think. I mean, we're on the topic of Elon. Do we want to talk about his xAI?
Yeah, sure. Mm. So I guess to start off, like, the, this was they announced xAI last week, or maybe the week before. Um, and the goal of xAI is, from their website, it says that their goal is to understand, the goal of xAI is to understand the universe, which I think is just like, I'm trying to wrap my head around what exactly they're, like, how exactly they're hoping to accomplish, like a safe and smart AGI. Because they are trying to build an AGI at the end of the day. But from what Elon has said and what from other people in the company have said, their theory on how to build the most useful and safest AGI is to build one that is genuinely curious about the nature of the universe and a lot of our unsolved questions. Mm. And I'm still, like, I've been thinking about this for a while. I'm still trying to wrap my head around what exactly that even means and how building an AGI that is designed to do that will lead to like the best outcome. Mm. It's just like a very far out there theory. And so, yeah, I mean, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. Or, like, what are you thinking as far as, like, does this make sense to you? Or are you also still trying to wrap your head around what exactly their goal is, what it means?
Um, it's a little bit of both. So it makes sense to me, um, because I think by ma by creating an AGI that's, like, curious about the world, that seems to me to allow it the best chance of developing a good view of humanity, because 'cause it'll just look out in the world and be like, maybe it will help it recognize the fact that, we are overall more beautiful than we are harmful. Uh, um, because I think, like, let's say you make it objective driven, in another way, like, it wants to, uh, I don't know, expand intelligence, to the maximum. That to me seems to, allow it the chance to develop or to see humans in a negative way. Like, it will maybe, uh, be more inclined to recognize our bad aspects, uh, more than it will recognize our good aspects. Um, I don't know why that specifically is, but that just is my initial thoughts on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And I tend to agree as well. Like a lot of the examples that people have given for potential bad outcomes of AGI. Um, like if you tell an AGI to make, like you say, make me a sandwich, and it like literally turns you into a sandwich. Like that's like an outcome or like an outcome driven response. Whereas with that could leave a lot of like room for misinterpretation. Whereas if you build an AGI that its goal is to just genuinely be curious about a lot of our unsolved questions, whether it's uh, the nature of the universe or like where aliens are, like a lot of these are like a lot of the different topics that they had mentioned on their announcement website. But if you just build one that's genuinely curious, then I guess it makes sense that it would be a lot less inclined to like do any harm to humans, because we are a part of the universe, and like it wouldn't make sense for it to like try to harm us in any way. But I still just think I don't know. It's like a I still just think
So,
it's like a
okay,
very
so what if
far. Go ahead.
okay,
Sorry.
so we both agree on that, but, like, what if it develops this idea, like, okay, to really understand the nature of humanity, we have to, like, test it, you know? Uh, so then I think that could lead it to, okay, well, we're just gonna see what, um I think that would lead it to interact with humans, which then opens up
Mhm.
the door to it, screwing with us. Uh, so that seems like a possibility, or it could go the other way where it just, like, observes us, um, which I think then
Yeah.
is the safe way.
Yeah. I agree. I don't know. I think a lot of this is just still hard to wrap our heads around, I think, because we don't have any idea of like what an AGI would look like, what it would be capable of doing, or how it would interact with us. And so I don't know. It'll be super interesting to see how this progresses over time. And I think they said that they were going to release details about a consumer product being put out within the next few months. I don't think it's going to be released within the next few months. I think they just said they were going to release details on it, but their initial goal of why this was even created was just to create a OpenAI competitor. So I'd imagine their first products that they're going to put out is just like a alternative to ChatGPT for their own models, and so we'll kind of get to interact with what their first version of this is going to look like. But
So I kinda
in
wanna
general,
yeah, sorry, no, you're
go
good,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, in
Oh,
general, I think it's like it's just good that like we're finally seeing some more ChatGPT competitors come around, because it's not like ideal that OpenAI is really like the only super solid player in the space at the moment.
yeah. So I am interested in so it says here, Elon Musk said the goal with xAI is to build a good AGI with the purpose of understanding the universe. Um, okay, so that's interesting to me because I want to see what it finds and then compare it to Christianity's view of the world. Um, because I have come to see Christianity as like just the worldview that makes the most sense. I don't mean that in like I want it to be true. I like find comfort in that. I mean, like I've read a lot, and that's just where that reading has taken me. I just really think like Christianity's understanding of the world is just like pretty spot on in terms of good, bad, whatever, whatever all is included in that. And I just want to see like if this xAI like I think there's just a good chance it's going to develop that same kind of thing. And then if it doesn't, that will also be interesting because I will like I think Elon thinks that this will just probably produce some novel understanding of the universe. It will just like bring us information that we can't even fathom at this moment. But I think there's a good chance it's just going to reaffirm maybe what we already know. Just a thought. I'm not I'm not willing to die on that hill maybe just yet,
Mhm.
but that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I'm kind of just skimming through this summary of the discussion that they had on Twitter Spaces. It said Musk said that there's so much that we understand or that we think we understand, but we don't in reality. There's a lot of unresolved questions. For example, there's a lot of questions that remain about the nature of gravity, why there's no evidence of aliens, etc. Um, and so, or a truth-seeking superintelligence, humanity is much more interesting than not having humanity. So that's their logic for uh, the safest way to create an AGI. And they want the AGI to be maximum curious and truth curious. So that's kind of where his initial name, Truth GPT, came from, which I really hope they don't call it that. I think that's a scary name. I'd rather them not do that. But yeah, I'm super excited to see what is produced of this because it's not like every company that I guess is attempting AGI, it's just been it has like a very corporate feel to it. And I don't really like that when we're talking about AGI. This is just kind of like way more out there. And I guess, and with Elon being kind of leading the helm there, it's like grounded in like first principles thinking. And that's why they want it to just like be built to try and understand humanity and our reality. So maybe they're onto something here. Maybe they're way off base in terms of how to build an AGI. But yeah, it actually said in a couple of weeks, they're going to release more details on their first like product that's going to come out. So that'll be, that'll be super interesting to see. And like I mentioned before, it's good to finally see like some more competition come into the space for AGI.
Yeah, certainly. Mm, uh, yeah, I think the more the merrier in terms of competition. It will be yeah, and like you said, I think it's nice to see one that's like it's less corporate and more um just it's like more like life based. That's that's
Right.
does that make sense?
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Okay. Yeah. And so that will be interesting. I have been curious to see how because like I said, Christianity to me makes sense. I don't have a clue how AI plays into it. Like the story of Christianity, you kind of just think it's like humans all the way, but then it's increasingly looking like we're going to integrate with technology, maybe just become technology. And um, that's just all very interesting to me. And I don't know if I have any more thoughts on it at the moment. But I see I have like this perception of the world, and then there's this reality that we're in now with AI, and they don't mix. And so something needs to click for me. So uh,
Yeah.
but until that happens, I guess I don't know. I feel like I'm stuck in this world, or I don't know. I'm lost in this house. took feedback from
Right,
ours.
right.
So
Um, well, I guess on the topic of like other AI competitors, Apple recently announced that they're building an AI chatbot called Apple GPT. Um, and this is the first time that Apple has like explicitly mentioned AI. Even in their last like developer conference, I don't think they mentioned AI a single time. So this is the first time that they're explicitly saying we're working on an AI project. They said that there's a consumer product aimed to be released next year. Um, I would imagine, I mean, the most obvious thing that this is going to look like is a Siri upgrade. Um, and I'd imagine too, like you can talk to it, chat with it. And then just with, I think Apple has some of the most to gain from AI just because they have a massive like fleet of products across the entire globe, whether it's phones, computers, uh, like they have the most, I guess, reach in terms of deploying consumer technology. And so not only that, but they collect absurd amounts of data through all these devices as well. So they have a lot to gain from that. And I'm really excited to see what they're going to come out with too. And I think it's well due because I honestly don't know anyone that really uses Siri consistently. Like it's pretty bad. I don't ever really use it. I think the most that I ever use it for is like setting timers when I'm cooking, so I don't have to do it with my hands. But like beyond that, I don't ever use Siri. So imagining like a chat GPT that's just built into your phone that you can talk with and it talks back to you and it can actually do tasks for you as well, like natively on your device. That's something that I think a lot of people would actually pay money for consistent access to use. I mean, people already pay for ChatGPT. Now imagine ChatGPT can interact with all of the apps on your phone or all of the stuff on your computer. I know I would say with a lot of certainty that there's definitely going to be like a freed version of whatever they're going to come out with, and also like paid versions as well. Because Apple is like, as we know, they're just like very good at software.
yep, that'll be that'll help me a lot with my text messages. I'm so bad about
Yeah.
texting people. So hopefully that will help me out in that department. I know my mom would appreciate it. But also
Right.
then yeah. But also then it's just that it's not a new problem, but if the AI is talking for you, uh then that puts a middleman in between, our interperson personal communications. And so that'll have an interesting effect on the world, I imagine,
Mhm.
because we're already becoming uh, perhaps a little more distant from one another. And I think there's definitely negative effects from that, and maybe that will only increase.
Mhm.
So that's something to keep an eye on. Um, yeah, yeah. So this is a unrelated thing, but I recently watched the movie Sound of Freedom. Uh, um, and my aunt said like the problems presented in that movie are a consequence of like a lack of like face to face time, and I don't know. I've just been thinking about that. I don't think she's entirely right by that, but
Well, I've heard a lot about this movie. I don't know anything about it other than there's a lot of like controversy around it. Is that right?
yeah.
So what is it about and like what's the controversy? Because I genuinely know nothing about this.
Okay, so the premise of the movie is that it follows a guy who, at the beginning of the movie, is an agent for the Department of Homeland Security. So he, in that role, goes after consumers of child porn, and so he's busting the pedophiles. But after so many years of doing that, he becomes like he wants to save the kids. So, um, uh, does that make sense? Like, yeah, he's kind of fixing the problem, but these kids are still trapped in slavery, and whatever else. But the problem is that these kids trapped in slavery, they're outside of the U.S., so it's outside of his jurisdiction. So he leaves the Department of Homeland Security, goes on his own, and starts setting up sting operations with the cooperation of like whatever law enforcement is there, whatever country he's in. And he starts rescuing kids. That's
Mhm.
the movie. And to be honest, I don't understand the controversy. It's
Yeah.
appears to be a real issue. I think it is maybe the most mm, just like heart wrenching, obviously bad. Like it's just so self evident. This is a problem. If in fact it is a real problem, which it seems to be. So yeah, I just don't understand how anybody could really be against this movie unless it is true that child trafficking is not as big of an issue or not a thing, um, like it is portrayed in the movie.
So is that the controversy then? Is like they are supposedly profiting off of an issue that is not that prevalent? Is that what people are complaining about?
That is, well, yes, I think so, and that's like a very fair representation of their argument. Um,
Okay.
there are probably more sinister reasons for why there's backlash against this movie. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
It could be true.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd seen people talking about it, but I genuinely did not know like what the movie was about, why people were complaining about it. I know I had heard of it, but that's interesting. Is it worth the watch, I guess?
Yep, for sure. It's also interesting. We can kind of tie this back into business to keep it on theme, but it's also interesting. So it's from a studio, like a low level studio, as far as I'm concerned. It's called Angel Studios. I'd never heard of them. I've never seen any movie produced by them, I don't think. And and so but it's just killing in the box office. It's like hit 100 million or something. Um, and uh, that's happening at the same time that like the staple studios are declining. Your Disney's, the, I mean Disney's like the only one I know is declining for sure. But I think like all of Hollywood is like really suffering right now. I mean, think about when's the last time you like saw a movie come out that you really want to see. Um,
Yeah.
so
Well,
it's
that and
like
the
this
writer's strike.
turning. Huh?
I said that and like the writers strike. Like everyone in Hollywood right now is on strike, so there's not really much like coming out of Hollywood. It seems like Hollywood in general is just kind of like under a lot of pressure and crumbling at the moment.
Yeah, and it's just like remake after remake after remake, and so yeah, Hollywood's like declining, but yet you have this movie that just comes out and just like crushes it against all odds. And so yeah, it seems like there's a kind of a turning of the tide, similar to maybe what we're seeing in like the tech industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think over the past few years, we've just kind of seen like I guess the word to use is like the I don't know if it's the right word to use, but like sort of like the decentralization of everything. Like a lot of stuff is just moving away from the big corporate entities and being a lot more individualized, I guess. Whether it's like you mentioned, like these smaller studios that are able to put out like really solid movies, or like AI being able to empower the individual to be able to produce the same level as like these larger, more corporate companies. So I think that's like one of the really strong positives of AI. But I guess there's also the alternative, which is, you know, a couple, like one or two different companies that like are being the main profiters of AI and them kind of having control over the entire space as far as what technology everybody's using. But yeah, that's super interesting. And then also tying into that, I guess, uh, Meta released the version 2 of their text model, which is they call it Llama. Um, so they originally released the version 1. I think it was either earlier this year, but it was completely private. The only people that got access to it were through you had to fill out an application, and it was for researchers only. So no like consumer or commercial use of it at all. But this latest version, the V2, it's now completely open source. Um, so anyone can use it for like personal or research purposes. And then you can also get a license for commercial use as well. So you can now build um, commercial applications with this. But I think the most important thing here is that it is completely open source. And so a lot of people are now going to download this model, fine tune it for whatever use cases that they want in order to get it better, better performance, I guess. And so I think this is where things get a lot more interesting in terms of like very like hyper specific AI models that are just like fine tuned to be really good at one certain thing. Because now any company can download this model, um, and then tune it for whatever purpose they want. And so as at the moment, that's not really possible. Like you're kind of using these more universal models such as ChatGPT. And while they are really good, they're not the best for certain applications. But now that are starting to put out these open source models, I think that's where we're going to see a lot of like really interesting applications come out that are just like, you know, really good at whatever it is that they're going to be doing. So props to Meta for doing this because I think it's a step in the right direction.
Hmm. Just to play devil's advocate, but now we're probably more likely to see these, uh, where, maybe that open source model is now going to be turned into, uh, bad, bad applications, right?
Yeah,
So
that's just as likely.
interesting. Yeah. This, that was, yeah, the whole concern with open source. And I guess here we have now, the playing field set to see where that goes.
Yeah. The only comforting idea I have in that aspect is that um, the some of like the performance metrics that were put out on this new model, it's not like it's still not as good as like ChatGPT, for example. So I think if like ChatGPT were to be open source or GPT-4 were to be open source, that's where I'd be pretty worried.
Mhm.
But I guess now that this model has been put out, yeah, people are free to do, I guess, whatever they want to do with it. Um, and the
And it's
LLaMa V1
interesting.
that came out, that's where like oh, what was that called? Someone like gave it the goal of just creating as much destruction as possible. I forgot what it was
Was it
called,
chaos?
but yeah, Chaos GPT. That was, I think,
Yeah.
built on Llama V1. But now that they're getting
So
better
how
and
can
easier to run, it's like a lot could happen.
okay, so Meta is Facebook, right? It's like
Yep.
Zuckerberg. So how can he simultaneously put out threads, which is like people can't do anything, it's heavy on the censorship, but then he's like, we're also going to release this open source uh AI and just like let people have at it.
I don't know. Um, it seems contradictory to me too. So I genuinely have no idea. I guess it's maybe more of a difference in morals when it comes to their approach to AI versus their approach to social media. Because so like Facebook, Instagram, they're trying to build this basically. All they really want to do is just build a safe haven for advertisers. It's not, it's less consumer focused in my mind and more built around how do we just pump out as much money from advertisers as we can. Um, but so yeah, that's a good point. I don't really, it's like a very contradictory view on
Yeah.
these two different applications.
Yeah. Wow. That it's interesting. I don't know how you can hold those positions at the same time, but
Yeah, I, I don't either, but the coolest thing to see from this, I guess, is these models are becoming way cheaper to train. And so you're getting like this LLaMa V2 model it's similar performance to ChatGPT. It's not quite as good, but it's like a fraction of the size and a fraction of the cost to train. So we're still seeing AI costs go way, way down. Um, and eventually it'll be to the point where like you can have like a GPT-4 level performance that just runs locally on your phone or on your computer. So it doesn't need internet access. It can just everything is stored within the model and it just stored locally. Uh, which a lot of people seem to have an interest in that. I personally don't really like care all that much about my data like and like protecting my data. I
It,
think it's basically unavoidable if you want to interact with the internet.
yeah, that's fair. It does seem to be okay. So if you listen to that Peterson podcast I sent you, it does seem to be the best way against to like protect ourselves from like some sort of like AI like monarchy situation. Um, I think it does that, and then if there's like one other function that served. Um, Another issue they were worried about was that like okay, so you have this technology that replicates people, um, and they were worried about not making money off that. Like, okay, let's say there's you, and then there's internet you, and internet you is being used for all these things, and just like the logistics of tracking that usage and then getting the funds to you because that's you like earn that money, like it's your money. Um, they were worried about that. I don't know if that is tied into the local uh, AI thing that we were just talking about. I don't think it is, but it is an interesting thing to consider because you're now going to have like just all these versions of people, and
Mhm.
I'm going to be pissed if there's like a version out there that's doing better than I am, and or whatever, and I'm not
Right.
getting any of that money.
Yeah. So, like, are you concerned about, I guess, data usage and AI? Like, would you want something that's completely offline that you can just use locally? There's no connection to the internet at all, or do you not really care all that much?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, am I worried about my data? Yes. Do I do anything to protect my data? No. Um,
Right.
so, so yeah, talk about being living in contradiction, but yeah, I'd be all for. I certainly would like it to go that direction.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't care all that much. I would definitely like the option to. Um, like I know anything that I'm putting into ChatGPT, for example, that they're gonna store it, they're gonna use it for retraining their models to make them better, whatever, and I'm perfectly fine with that. But there are certainly like I guess business applications I could think of where I wouldn't want to do that. Like if you're allowing an AI to interact with, say, your customer information, to do whatever, whether it's analysis over your business metrics, or maybe you just want it to like interact with your customer database to where you can learn insights on all of your customers. Like you obviously for larger companies, you don't want to put that into Chat GPT. Like that's private
Yeah,
information from your customers. Like you could get sued for that. And so there's certainly lots of like business applications I could think of to where these locally ran offline models are they make perfect sense. But yeah, I'm not like I've kind of come to the like acceptance that there's no way really to avoid hiding all of your data without going through tons of different loopholes. Like it's just more of a inconvenience than anything. And so I personally don't care all of that much, but I can definitely see why, a lot of people are striving for that. And I think it's a good option to have regardless. So and I think that's where things are heading. So
yeah. The privacy thing is interesting. I feel like we've slid along like a long ways on that. Like 30 years ago, the idea of your any bit of information about you, like just being given to the whole internet would just like, or I mean, the whole world essentially would just freak people out. But now we just don't. I don't think twice. I mean, I would like to, but yeah,
Yeah.
I don't. Just like, let me use your app.
And right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I mean, I think most people would like I know that my phone is listening to things that I say or whatever. Like I know it, and Apple will tell you that it doesn't, but they're lying. Amazon,
Yeah.
like the Alexa stuff in everyone's homes, like they aren't doing this because it's cool and like you can talk to it in your house. Like they want data. All of these companies want data. And
Yeah. It's
there's
the
not really
Yeah, it's just, you talk about something with a person, and then, like, 20 minutes later, you see an ad for it on your phone. It's all you
yeah.
need to know right there.
It's not a coincidence at all.
No.
But
No.
that's like another interesting thing too regarding these AI models that are being trained. I think there's like about like there's definitely like a war on data, I guess you could call it, that's starting. I mean, Twitter, after Elon bought Twitter, like one of the first things he did was shut it off to anyone that had access to Twitter's data. And also now he's like implementing a lot of measures to where people can't scrape Twitter's website for data as well. So there's definitely a kind of heating up in terms of, I think a lot of companies are going to be like you got Reddit, for example, they're going to want to charge money for these AI companies to have access to their website. And so I think there's a lot of unanswered questions regarding like, do these companies have the ability or have the right to do that? And if they do, like how much are they going to charge? What are these deals going to look like? I think we're going to start seeing a lot of stuff come out on that aspect.
Yeah. Man, that's just it's kinda weird to think about how, like, data is the resource to have. Um, that's just kinda weird. But also, do you think, like, is it possible that an AI just learns to mimic I mean, obviously, it can mimic a person, but, like, it just, like, signs up for a Reddit account on its own and then just starts going ham through all of Reddit?
I guess it's possible, but even then I think you could probably consider that to be scraping because it's like automated data accumulation. So unless
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
just like
I'm
a
so yeah, I
really,
agree. It's definitely scraping, but, like, I just see this, like, you're gonna have, like, special agent AIs that go in and do
right.
black ops crap on Reddit.
Yeah. Well, I guess like there will come a time where these AIs can get advanced enough to where it's not really detectable by like whatever automated system they're using to like prevent scraping. So yeah, it's going to be hard to avoid. But I mean, you're already seeing all these companies do it. Like Twitter obviously did it, and there was a lot of controversy on that because they implemented like rate limiting for a certain period of time just to prevent people from scraping while they built out
Mm,
all the technology to stop people from scraping. And then literally a week later, Threads did the exact same thing. Um, and a lot of like the controversy around Reddit that's been happening over the past few months has been regarding data. So yeah, I mean, I personally think it makes sense for these companies to charge for their data. Like, why would you not? Um,
mhm.
Instead of just having like OpenAI, like they were so far ahead of everybody else that they got to just scrape the entire internet pretty much, I guess, under the radar in a sense to where there was really any kind of controversy. But now that all
Yeah.
these other websites and companies are like locking up their data, it makes it way harder for new AI startups to do the same thing because they're going to have to pay hundreds of millions of dollars for access to the data that OpenAI scraped for
Go
free,
for
basically.
Yeah. That's interesting. Uh, yeah. I keep thinking, like, of now I think of data as, like, oil, but it's like, you're, like, a country rich in data. You're just set, which
Yeah.
is kind of an interesting thought.
So I think like America is in a very solid position right now in terms of AI. I think the country that wins AI will be the global dominant force for the foreseeable decades. And I think America is like pretty far ahead in that aspect. So that keeps me like
Yeah.
pretty optimistic on like the trajectory of our country.
Yeah. We should look into that. See if like, have you heard anything out of China?
About AI?
Mhm.
Not really. I think it might have been a couple months ago. I read that they're working on a chat GPT competitor, but I don't think they've put anything out.
Yeah.
So I I
That's
haven't
okay.
seen
So
anything or they're just staying under the radar on what they're working on.
yeah. Okay. So consider this. Um, okay. So like they really, now that everything's locked down here, you can't scrape our data. So I mean, they have just a crazy ton of people there. So they can scrape their own data, but it's censored. It's not like true human interaction. I don't
Yeah.
know that for a fact, but I mean, just my understanding of the CCP, like you can't just go say whatever you want on the web out there. So it's like fake human data. So they're kind of like behind, like they're screwed. Like their large language models just cannot be as accurate and as competent or whatever as ours. So that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see how they could like catch up in any way. I think if any
What if it?
country was to be a go ahead.
What if it like? Yeah, there's. Hmm, I mean, I think ultimate result of it still seems unlikely in my head, but there's a potential for that allowing for more free speech in China because maybe they're put in a position of like, well, it's either we let people speak their mind and we figure these models out, or we're just screwed.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I think if there was any country that would be like a rival to us on AI, it would be China. And like you said, I mean, their version of the internet is much, much different than ours. And I would imagine that the AGI that they want to build is probably a lot different than the AGI that we're wanting to build. So that that in itself kind of scares me alone because they can kind of just at the moment there's no global like regulation for AI. It's just everyone's just kind of attacking it in their own way. And so
I mean,
yeah, I don't really know.
you can assume their parameters are going to be creating an AI that's sole goal is like to keep the CCP in power. That would not be unrealistic. God
Yeah.
knows what that thing will do.
Yeah, it's worrisome for sure. We've had this discussion before. Like, I think we can all agree there needs to be some level of regulation for AI globally. I don't know what that really should look like, but
think you're, yeah, I think you're going to have to fight a war though to make that happen. I mean, you think China's going to listen to anybody about that?
right. Yeah, yeah, I don't know.
Hmm.
Maybe it's an unrealistic scenario, but maybe there's some sort of like, or I don't know. I probably wouldn't make sense at all. I was gonna say maybe there's like some sort of deal that could be made where like these large US companies would sell parts of their data to China to help them train their models, but on the premise of like, we did like if we're gonna do this, if we're gonna sell you the data,
Hmm.
then like it needs to be done under these certain parameters. But I don't see that happen.
So should that's interesting. That might be a good way to like get things forward in a positive way. But also maybe it should now be considered like traitorous to sell your data to China since the stakes are so high. Um,
Yeah.
how-
The one thing
that's
China does
maybe.
have going for them is TikTok. I mean, I think the largest social media platform
Mm,
by users. Maybe Instagram is bigger, but I mean, at least within like the younger generations, it's obviously TikTok.
Oh,
And
yeah, I didn't think about TikTok.
yeah,
Maybe now I'm
so
pro ban TikTok. I don't
I
know.
personally
That's not my
have been.
official stance. Really?
Yeah.
I don't think it ever to me, I guess it didn't make sense till just right now.
I
Why have you been just for these same reasons?
yeah, just for I mean, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, these are all banned in China for obvious reasons. Um, and why we've allowed TikTok to be used openly in the US, I don't really know because I know they have like TikTok has like a US division that I want to say is located here, like actual physical location here. But I mean, there's just no way that this data is not being shared directly to China. There's just no
Yeah.
way. And also, um, and I remember this was like 2 or 3 years ago. Andrew Schultz, the comedian, put out this video, and he said at the time it was like speculation. It kind of meant to be joking, but it's like turned out to be true. Um, that TikTok could alter the TikTok algorithms based on the country. So the Chinese algorithm for TikTok was meant to feed the younger generations like educational content, like meant to actually benefit society, like science, math related stuff, like very productive things to make their citizens better. And the US version of TikTok, which I don't use TikTok, but I feel like most people that have been on there know, it's just like I don't know how to describe it other than like it's like brain dead content. Like it just feeds you stuff
Yeah.
to dumb you down, like people doing silly dances. Like so there's definitely a level of manipulation there as far as it's like psychological manipulation really. Like they just feed these people like, oh, the way to get famous and make a lot of money is to just be like this dumb version of yourself that does dances on the internet. And then all these kids
Yeah.
see it and like, oh, that's what I need to do.
Yeah. I've seen that proposed before as well. I'm sure like yeah, it's probably a thing. Again, just to play devil's advocate, I interact with TikTok every now and then. My fiance uses it. Her feed, it's like family stuff, and you'll see like people like working out into fitness. So like if you're conscientious about how you use it, then it can be productive. I would say, but yeah, I would certainly say like it's probably just naturally set up to do what you described.
Yeah, I agree. It's not like I don't think it's like super blatant to where like you said when you guys use TikTok, like it's not just that same kind of stuff, but these kids who aren't really as conscientious whatever that word you just said was
It's so yeah, it's so hard.
about like what they're looking at and interacting with on TikTok, like they're just naturally gonna fall into that trap of like these stupid videos that are really just kind of dumbing people down. So
For sure.
that's why I've had the stance of like, let's just I, I mean, even if we did ban TikTok, like now that all these other websites have like kind of replicated the TikTok model, like Instagram Reels and stuff, like it's the damage is
You're
already
still
done.
gonna be able to get that. Uh,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I got you. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, okay, so let's say you're like, you really don't want TikTok to be banned because you like it. Well, like you just said, there's already so many other platforms that are essentially the same. Like you're still gonna be able to have uh, that
Yeah.
type of feed. So
Yeah.
yeah, that seems like this seems like something that makes sense to ban
Yeah.
TikTok.
And that's one, I mean, we could go into this forever really, but that's one like thing that I'm glad that I'm not currently like a kid in the like living in our current generation or whatever, like being raised with this instant access to TikTok and stuff. Like when we were growing up, we didn't have all that much social media at all. Like the first one we really had was like Facebook, I guess. And even that was like, pretty tame. But now kids growing up with
Yeah.
YouTube, TikTok. Like I think there's a lot of damage being done to the younger generations with these apps. I sound like an old man saying that, but I mean,
You do.
yeah,
It's yeah, probably yeah. You are certainly right to some degree. Um, but like especially with YouTube, that's what's interesting about YouTube is like it can be very enlightening.
yeah.
So if you learn how to use it right, yeah, then it's good to go. But certainly it can be just turn your brain to jelly.
Well, that's like if you think about how these platforms are designed, they're just like dopamine machines, basically. Like they're literally designed to keep you on there as long as possible and keep you stimulated as long as possible. And you're not the way to do that is not by feeding you educational content, it's just by feeding you whatever makes you like the happiest to sit there and stare at for hours. So just the incentive structure, how they're built, it's not productive. Um, but like certainly like what we do, like I use YouTube and Twitter and all these sites for like learning about business stuff, about just finding educational things that I think are way more productive. But for the kids that aren't like thinking about that just because they're too young, like the way that their feeds and stuff are going to be designed, it's just like, I think there's a lot of consequences that could come from it.
Yeah, 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 for sure. If you're a parent, you gotta just be like really focused on teaching your kid good internet habits because like the it's just like their life. Like I mean, I mean, I'm not saying it's kids' lives. Like it's my life. Like I'm
Yeah.
just almost constantly connected to the internet, and so if
Yeah.
you screw up developing your internet, the way you use the internet, you're just kind of like screwed for life, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but we kind of got a bit way off our topics there. But I guess to bring it back, is there anything else that you wanted to go over? Or
Mm-mm. No,
all right, cool. Well, that was our 10th episode, finally in double digits now. Uh, I think going forward, we've kind of been sporadic with our schedule, but we're going to try to do our best to like be more consistent with weekly episodes. So yeah, I
we're
guess
gonna
we'll
try
wrap
and get
things
in
up
on this.
here.
We're gonna try and get in on this Twitter uh,
Oh yeah,
ad revenue sharing.
absolutely. Twitter ad revenue, the YouTube. But yeah, thanks everybody for watching and we'll be back next week.